In this video, I'm going to be explaining the best way to construct highways in Transport Fever 2, and this is also including a lot of mistakes that are far too common, so make sure to watch to the end so make sure you don't fall for these beginner mistakes that could ruin your traffic flow in your save game. Here we are in my main save game. As you can see, we've got no highways going, but we've got a lot of infrastructure elsewhere, such as a lot of yards and stuff along that nature, but we're lacking big time on traffic. If we go to any road, we can see it's not looking good. A lot of vehicles and not a lot of movement in these cars when we press play. Now let's fix this, and we're going to do this by covering all of the map at the same time to explain different examples of how this works. So let's talk about highways. I've got here a ring road around the capital city. You'll notice that it covers all three zones of the city. However, people aren't actually using these roads, and there's a good reason for this. It's because the AI will always take the shortest route possible. As you can see, these guys, a couple of cars on here. There's a lot more also on this road over here. Cars taking the shortest route, the least path of resistance to get where they need to get to. This, however, is going to change when we start to introduce external roads and connecting them up. So the first thing I'd recommend you do is you construct your ring road around the capital city. And you can do it for multiple cities if you like. I think it's only essential for your capital city. However, you can do it for all cities if you want. But let's talk about connections now. Go over to your landscaping tool, which is number 5 on your keyboard, and then go over to the paint tool. Now you can grab any color you want as long as it's pretty vivid. You can't really go for something like grass 2 or whatever because you're not really going to see it. Go for like, I don't know, water dirty, which is like an oil, or soil 1, or like an asphalt. Something you can see long distance. Now make sure the brush is about medium and high strength. Now I'm actually going to go ahead and go to one side of the map, and then we'll go from the edge inwards. Is probably an easy way of doing it for me, but obviously you could do things your own separate way. Now we've got a little interesting thing here. There's 2 major cities, one more major than the other, so it's going to be biased on this side, but we have got to consider this city as well. But let's disregard this smaller one for now, and let's talk about this big one. Grab our paintbrush, and we're going to connect it up literally just for now to the exterior side of the city. So we're not going to go straight in, and when I say connect it up, I mean we're going to go on the paint tool and draw a connection, and this will make sense later on. This is literally because there's no point going to the road tool and then finding all the roads you need and then going piece by piece all the way over and then making a mistake and you have to restart again. You might as well just do it in paint and you can just rub it out. It's so simple. So let's grab our water dirty, and we're going to go literally from the outside, least path of resistance. So from here to the next city is literally going to be either a straight line crossing this lake and then through this mountain, which isn't very good at all really, over to this city. So let's think about this more logically. We can then also go to our landscaping tool, which is this button here in the top left in the data layers, and then go over to our contour lines with keypad 1 or this icon up here. And we can start to see some of these hills now. They aren't actually crazy hills, but there is definitely some terrain going on here. So with that in mind, instead of our road going straight across the lake like that, we can actually just go a little bit along the coast here, and then along this beach here where the land is nice and flat as well. And then after that, go back to our original straight line, which is going to be straight across this flat land over to the city. Now let's draw that in. That looks pretty good. I would always advise, always build your roads like they would happen in real life. You're not going to get a whole ass motorway or highway being built over a lake. It makes 0 sense. Also, if there's a mountain, they're just not going to build it through it, are they? They're going to go through literally the least path of resistance. The cost versus performance ratio. You want to go pretty cheap, won't interact too much with other infrastructure that could damage it, and you want people to get to their destination nice and quickly. Let's draw it in. So grab our road here, and we're going to go down here, and we'll continue the road like this. A little bit down here, just like that. And we can just plug it into the exterior of this city as well and then stop there. We can come back to this in a bit. Now let's talk about this bit here, because this is a little bit more complex. There's a few more things going on. If you've got any situations like this, make sure you find out first of all what is actually going on with these roads. I don't know what's going on here. We got some kind of phantom road and that just randomly spawns in. So I don't actually think we need this. I'm going to go ahead and delete this. Now where does this road go? This road goes into a massive traffic jam. Okay, so this needs looking at. That goes over to that city over there. Okay, so we don't really need that one either. And then this road is going over to this wood lodge, and I don't think much is happening over in this regard anyway. So we can go ahead and delete these things here, because we're actually going to develop a much better road network instead of this. And now all that rubbish is cleared up a little bit, we can start to think about how we're actually going to do this over the tracks. Now, a lot of people, which I don't know why, but they I guess want to do things the easy way, would be to just drag the road over there, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I mean, I can count maybe 2 instances in the whole world where this happens, So I think that tells you how good it is. Instead, we want to think about elevation. So over here, we've got a bit of a hill going on, okay? And then over here, there's a slight hill as well. So potentially, I think if we get a little bridge go, just a small one, that's going to go down here. And then that means we can also cross the track easily. And there's no blockage. There's no chance for a train that's really long to be stopping traffic, or a big traffic jam to be causing issues with the train. It's actually just allowing things to pass freely, which is super, super good. And that means that we can also connect these back up as you'd expect. And now we can see clearly on the map exactly what the road is going to look like from a very wide angle, so we can kind of get the bigger picture. You can already start to see here, this is not the least path of resistance. There's a big bit here which we can save by just drawing a line straight across there. And just like that, we've just cut people's travel time by a lot. So I'm going to draw that in. We're going to get rid of the old bit of road markings. And that leaves us with this. It's a pretty straight road. One thing we have to consider, because we've just changed this, of course, is the elevation. There happens to be a semi-hill here. What might have to happen, though, is we might have to just extend this bridge a little bit down here over this hill and then come on this bigger hill. Now, you should do this to all of the other cities that you want to connect up with the least path of resistance. And now, when you get to the capital city, it works slightly differently. Now, because we've got our ring road, you want to be connecting it up in the industrial zone preferably, which is very good because it's actually on the side I want it to be. If it doesn't, it's okay. You can put one of these guys in, and then you could bring a road off of that, which we're also going to cover later in this video as well. But because it's a ring road, we're going to be connecting up to the ring road, and we need to consider our outbound options as well. So thinking about where we could have an output, this is a perfect place, prime place for development. There's not a lot of buildings going on, so there's not a lot to be destroyed, not a lot of traffic, so it's not really being utilised as much as it could be, and there's a lot of open space. Because of course this road is actually going to have to pass this city, go to the next city as well. It's actually not the same story on this side of the city. We have a pretty severe development of buildings. There is a lot of stuff going on here. So it would definitely not be a good idea to have an exit here, cutting this whole neighbourhood in half, and that's going to really damage our economy. Instead, I would actually recommend all the way back here to have the exit and then bring this around like that. I would always keep your major arteries away from these residential places, because if you lived in these residential places, you wouldn't want to live next to a motorway, would you? Or a highway. It's just not very good. And by the way, I use those interchangeably. Motorway is just the exact same word for highway from where I live. So if I say motorway, I mean highway. When you're constructing these ring roads, because it's the capital city, it's going to be a lot busier with traffic. And you might start to notice there's a little bit of a pattern with some of these roads having a lot of cars on. This is the one we looked at earlier. There's a lot of vehicles, a lot of slow moving traffic. We can actually double up here. Because we're building out our motorway or highway from this section of road, it actually passes this point anyway. And that means we can, in the process of building this, upgrade our current infrastructure and do the citizens a better service. So let's go to the next city along and we'll bring it into capital. So that's now drawn in like that. Think about Pretoria a bit later on as well. It's a smaller city, it's nowhere near as big as capital, so it doesn't get priority in this case. Now, okay, this is a bit more complex. There's a lot of stuff going on here. So our new road is going to start over here. Now let's consider there's an industry here. We're going to have to be able to get around this, because as you can see, if we go and construct a road over here, it's going to say there's an error, because it's actually a collision with this industry. We can't delete industries unless you're in the sandbox mode, which I recommend you turn on. But let's do things properly and not delete industries or be moving them. Let's actually just build around them. So by the looks of things, the options are we can go left or we can go right. On the right, we got a lot of buildings, and on the left, we got not a lot of buildings. So I think we go on the left. It's probably the best choice here. So I'm going to delete some of the things we don't need, especially all these commercial buildings. Now, this does cost a lot of money, but it is really good for your economy. You get a lot more workers in the capital city especially, and you get a lot of people just generally travelling around, which they spend money, and you make money from that. Bridge should probably cross over these train tracks since they are slightly lower down, and then they'll come on a little ramp down here, up to about here, and we can go underneath this bridge and then connect up to this road, which we're going to upgrade. And that's pretty good for now. That's covering a whole half of the map, of course, because the capital city is in the center of the map, and it's literally just a mirror image. Like, it's the exact same thing we just did over here on the other side of the map as well. But just for the sake of the video, I'm just going to cover this half of the map, because you don't really need to see me do things twice. I just keep it simple and show you once, and you guys can copy that over into your saves where appropriate. So now I'm going to go in, I'm going to start placing some roads. We're not going to worry too much about connections. We're going to, just for now, grab ourselves the large highway, and we're going to begin to construct this road. And we're going to literally just start a little bit further out from the city, so we're not touching anything. So I'm going to go ahead and build these roads all the way through this wilderness until we get up to all of these cities. And just like that, our brand new highway is now constructed across the land. Now, one important thing that you need to go through immediately and do, or you're going to have problems later on with the AI changing the roads without your consent. So go to the road tool and then tools, make sure player ownership tool is selected, and all of this highway you've just built is just gone blue. Also, for a good reference for the future, when you have a road, you can actually tick player ownership as an option in the settings when constructing the road, and this means that the road will automatically be owned by you when placed, and the AI can't interfere with it. I've also added a little split here so the traffic has the option to come off of the motorway and cross over these tracks to enter this side of the city where we have a lot more buildings that they can access. And it gives a nice fast route for any vehicles to be able to drive. And then when we get over to this side of the map, you'll see I have made a lot of changes over here. This is looking very different from the last time. And don't worry, we're going to cover everything here. It's going to be super simple. Basically, I've just deleted all of the random commercial buildings that were just being built here by the AI. They just weren't necessary at all. I've given them a bit of space over here just to give them a little bit of land to do something. But really, this should all be industrial, and it will be eventually. Hence the massive words I've written, fill with industrial in capital letters. But yeah, talking about motorways anyway. So what we had before, this road, it was going up here and it was kind of crashing into this motorway we were building, so I didn't like that. I built over the top a new bridge, and that means now we can go underneath, and then this road extends, like I said, over this train tracks, comes on a nice slope down, and then we go all across here. We'll just disregard this bridge for now, but underneath here we go underneath the bridge I've put in, and then straight into the motorway we had here before, just like that, with a little one of these in the preset street constructors. I just put one of these in, literally like this. I upgraded the number of lanes to a 3-lane, made it large, stuck it in, simple as that, and that's now connected. Now let's take a second to talk about this bridge, because I'm sure you're wondering what's going on here. So originally we had a road that was going literally across here, like just flat, and that's obviously not going to work if we've got a massive highway / motorway going through. It's just not going to work. There'll be a massive traffic jam. The idea with motorways is you have no stopping and get to somewhere fast. There's no intersections, so cars aren't having to watch out for each other from different angles. It's just behind and in front, and this allows for very good traffic flow, which is why they're so good and they're so widely used in real life. So with that in mind, I made this road go above and over the top. But then what about Pretoria? We mentioned this earlier. Pretoria still needs access to get to the rest of the map. We can't have the guys from Pretoria literally just go down this road, have to drive all the way down here, all the way down here. I don't even know where they go from here. They would, I guess, have to go over to this junction way over this side of the town, then get on the motorway, go back to where they just came from. I'm sure you get the gist at this point. But yeah, basically, we just had some slip lanes. It's as simple as that. So the bridge has a couple of slip lanes with traffic lights, of course. Very useful. Have traffic lights, don't forget. And they're going on to motorways / highways, just like that. If I just leave this on screen for a second, I'm sure you get the idea. It's a pretty simple process. So a little bit of advice when we're building motorways or highways. Do things in little sections, right? So I mentioned earlier, we've got a whole ass complex thing going on here. There's really a lot to take in, and we can see also I've done it in tiny sections. There's a really good reason for this, and it's literally because if I grab a street right now, we'll just put a one in here for example, and I just go straight across here, it just doesn't work. Like it just doesn't work at all. But you can do it a lot better if you do it in small sections, so just piece by piece. If you need to, you can actually do it backwards like that. And obviously this is not the right direction of traffic. We want to be going that way, away from the camera right now. And obviously you can fix this, it's not an issue. So sometimes it's useful just to go this direction. And if you want to change direction, go to upgrade, right click, and that changes the road to have the traffic flow the other direction for one-way roads. So let me cover about this train bridge as well, because there's actually a very specific way you can get the bridge to not have pillars or physical pillars in the game. And now I'm guessing you're wondering, why the hell would this be an issue? Let me show you right now. This is quite the issue actually when you're building roads. So let's say we've got a train bridge that covers across here. I'll just put it like that for now. It's obviously not ideal, but you can see there's lots of pillars that are already on the bridge, and we start to put some roads in like this. Let's just grab our road and plug it in, and you see it's quite fine the first time around. Sometimes it'll say bridge pillar collision. Now it doesn't say it in this instance luckily, but maybe I can get it to do it over here. Aha! There you go. So this is now saying bridge pillar collision, and at some points it will do this. It's kind of pot luck whether this happens, but it is very easy to fix, to be fair. Literally all you've got to do is just delete the tracks or whatever's above on the bridge, place down the road you want, then you can go in little sections, or you could even sometimes just go straight across like I've just done there, and it'll do it for you like that. If it doesn't do that, then what you can do is you can also go with your road, you can go make it flat, make it straight, and then just bring it out in small little sections. So that's nice and straight. Just bring it to about there. Bring some more out. There you go. You see that's working now. And then at this point, you want to try and aim for just before the end of the road. So this is the middle, and then that's the end of the road just there. So you want to aim for about there, just before the middle. Place that down. Generally speaking, that's how you do it. Another thing, if you want to put quick bridges in, like for example, I use the tool on this bridge as well. It's really simple. Not a lot of people actually know about this. You can get yourself a road, drag it straight across like that, and then press the M and N keys to lower and raise the actual road. Really useful stuff. And if you want to just raise it on the one side, so for example, that you want to bring the road on the right side up, but not in the middle, then you can press the comma and full stop keys, and that does pretty much the same thing. Really useful tool. Not everyone uses that. And by the way, this is one type of connection called a crossover connection. I also use one of these in Palm Valley as well, and they're kind of really common connection types in really all world road networks. They're just really useful, and they're really cheap to make as well. And as always, as you're constructing your highways, you want to try and follow the terrain so it's as perfectly flat and as perfectly straight as you can get, really. And that's what I've done here, of course. It's nice and flat. There's a bit of a hill here, nice and flat still. We're still nice and flat all the way over here, as much as possible. Then it just means that there's a bit of a bridge thing going on. And that's how we know we should place our road underneath the motorway or highway, as it's also following the terrain as much as possible while in keeping with the highway's terrain. What will be bad in this instance is to have the highway take a drastic downhill here past this hill point and then come down and then go back up again. That would not be good. So this is the best way of doing it. And now here's the most tricky part, the end of the line, where we go from a 6-lane highway into the end, just ocean, the city at the end. And there's nowhere else to go from here, obviously, so this is where the motorway has to go into, well, 2 lanes. And that's difficult to go from 6 to 2 lanes. So I'm going to show you how you do it. And it's actually a lot simpler than you think. We'll grab our road, continue it across. I think keeping it nice and flat should do the job just fine. I'll change the direction of travel in a second. Let's just get it built first. We'll bring this across the tracks. When we get across the tracks, probably put it just as close as possible to the tracks after the tracks with the bridge, because we're going to need some space to bring it down towards the ground. If we leave it too far, we won't have enough space to bring the drop to the ground. So about there is probably about right. And then of course, down to the ground. I would always use the inside lane. So this, because it's going to be shorter, because it's got less distance to turn technically than the other side of the road. Start on this side, in this instance anyway. Bring this down to the ground. Nice smooth motion. That's fairly good. It could be slightly better, but it's fairly good. I'll tweak it in a little bit. But here's the most important part, right? And focus here, because this is really, really important. And you can apply this across all types of roads in the game as well. So like I say, 6 lanes going into 2 lanes. How do we do it? Well, there's a lot of these 2 lanes, right? And there's only one 6 lane. So we can use this to our advantage. So as we did before in the capital city, take a look under the land use layer tab. We can see where people want to go. We've got commercial, residential, and industrial sectors to this city, as you do with every city in Transport Fever 2. And these are the main destinations people want to go when they're traveling to a city. So with that in mind, we can count the industrial as 1, count the residential as 1, and count the commercial as 1. How many sides does each road have? Well, there's 6 total, so 3 each is 3. And we've got 1, 2, 3. So that's 3 different places, and they're all going on one road. This is a perfect opportunity. So grab out the motorway with a 3 lane. So when you got it close enough to the city, swap over to the 2 lane, then bring it out a little bit like that. Then swap over to the highway ramp or 1 lane and bring it out like that. As you can see, we've got kind of a funneling motion that's all going in to eventually one lane. But this does not obey road hierarchy or lane management. And this is one of the most important things in Transport Fever 2, and it's so neglected. For every road you subtract, you must add a slip lane to counteract this. So with the highway ramp or 1 lane road, at the point where we transition between the 2 types of roads, bring it out just like that. And as you can see now, we've still got 3 lanes coming off from the 3 lanes that are entering. So there's going to be no conflicts here with cars having to wait for other cars or slowing down or anything. They can just use straight onto the other lane. Now I'm going to set this up so all the roads connect freely to where they need to go around the city, because obviously there's different points in town which are a little bit more difficult to access, such as residential back here. But I'm going to do it, and I'm going to show you how I did it. Okay, so here we are. I've had a little play with it, and this is what I came out with. I've first of all smoothened these bridges off a lot more, so the incline is a little bit less steep for cars to go up and down. And then over here we've got our first offshoot, so we've got roads going on and off, and they're literally swinging over the top here and also off the chute here, and they're going into this industrial place here, and this is allowing cars to go from industrial in and out. So this is the in point here on the, because we drive on the right on this save, we're driving in, and then if you want to drive out, you can also drive out here. It's not the best possible way of doing things. You could put a small roundabout in here, which could probably do a better job, but it's not going to be hugely busy around here, I don't think. Traffic won't be manic, and it's also because it's a highway, things are going pretty fast anyway, so it's not going to be too big of an issue, I don't think. And then the second one, so what I've done is the same sort of thing. I've brought out an offshoot to go up here, and I've brought out an offshoot over here, which is coming back on, of course, to go away from the city. But then both of these actually don't loop back onto some random road next to it. They're going quite a bit of distance away to connect up to residential. Because as we noticed before, residential is on the back side of the city. There's no really way to get to it without going through another place. So we don't want the traffic to build up in, say, commercial if we want to drive through and get to residential. Instead, we want people to go straight to residential and skipping commercial, otherwise the traffic's going to build up because you'll have commercial and residential traffic both building up here, which you don't want, of course. I've built these slip lanes that go over the top on a little bridge, and they carry it over the industrial zone, which works out perfectly because this is the exact place you would want to have slipovers like this, industrial or commercial. It just looks really cool, you know. And the last one, of course, is going to be this one, which literally just goes straight into commercial, as you've already seen, like that. I can't stress this enough. Make sure everything is player owned. It is incredible. It is so useful. This should be player owned. I don't know why this isn't player owned, so I'm going to do that right now. See, it's always worth checking. Perfect. That's what it should look like. And why should everything be player owned? It comes down to this. If it's not player owned, the AI will auto build. As you can see over the time this save's been running, just random roads that make no sense. And this is okay if you want to build like an old worldy type town where everything's kind of a little bit retro, a little bit antique and old fashioned, because old cities of course have notoriously terrible road systems, which is kind of the vibe I've gone through here. I left the old town where these sort of rustic old buildings are as a very messy road system, where the new part of town, which I guess you could say has been built like next door to where the main city once was, but it's kind of more modern, is very much more gridded and it's a lot more modern, and I think this looks decent in this instance. But if you don't lock all your roads and make them player owned, they will just make messes. Let me show you an example. So this is the part of the map I haven't really touched too much. This is Hidden Village, and it's just an absolute mess over here. Like, what is going on with all these roads? They make no sense at all. What? Why is there two roads parallel like that? It just, it makes no sense. So always lock your roads. And as well, it means you can make beautiful towns and cities like Capital over here. Awesome. And then going back to what I was saying earlier, where I was only going to cover half the map, and then you guys can mirror it in your own time. Well, you can literally just put in your exit, just like this, continue it outwards towards the rest of the map. And you can do that at your own discretion. It's that simple. And this now modularizes the ring road of the city, and it allows more cars to pass through. It's kind of a main hub for cars to go through to get where they need to go. And if you want to play this map for yourself, there's a link in the top comment or in the description to my Patreon, which allows you to do that. But of course, all the information is free on this YouTube channel for you. And there we go. We can see cars using the motorway now. Not too many just to start with, but don't worry, because this is actually what motorways or highways first looked like when they were first invented. And it's a really hard sight to imagine. Like, there's only like 2 or 3 cars floating around on here, but oh boy, in real life did they come pretty far. So it will take quite a few years, but they will fill up eventually. And the main purpose, don't forget, is to get people from A to B as fast as possible. And that's what the highway does. And it also has room later for more lanes for more people. But now you know the best ways of doing highways in Transport Fever 2. What you're really going to struggle with is going to be what happens after the AI cars leave the highways, as you're going to get lots of traffic in a massive build-up that's going to clog up all of your vital arteries over time. And that's why you need to watch this video, which shows you the best ways to do road design inside cities. And this goes hand in hand with what we've just done today, and it's really important to do. So you need to check this out for your Transport Fever 2 save.